Well, this is some news I wasn't expecting this morning. Apparently, Yahoo News has reported that Disney has just canceled yet another LGBTQ show, which is fantastic in my opinion, but it may not be because of the ideology. It's probably for this reason right here. Although the show's first two seasons accumulate over 75 million hours watched in the US alone, the company decided to end the show without providing a reason for the cancellation. That right there is your reason. You don't need any big conspiracy. You don't need anything like, oh, is Disney finally waking up? No, it's the numbers alone. They yeeted the Acolyte, which they want to compare to in this article, that had 2.7 billion hours viewed. You're going to eat that show and keep this one? Come on. the math's not mathing right there. Disney's a lot of things, but eventually they even start realizing the numbers that they can't do something, and this is a prime example of it. Now, they do go ahead and say that Sony Pictures Television plans to shop the show to other outlets and explore different creative directions for the IP. In other words, you went ahead and messed up our stuff, Disney. You brought this DEI woke stuff. We need to get out there and just reshape our brand. We need to get away from what you've done to us. You just poison us. Let's get out of here. Because you have to remember that the original Goosebumps show that had 5 seasons back in 1995, and that was actually a pretty good show. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a horror guy myself, so I never really got into it. But from what I remember from people always praising the show as a kid, that makes sense to me. Like you're just mad that Disney has just completely destroyed your IP, which they love to do. Now they want to go ahead and compare us to the other trans and queer shows like Willow and the Acolyte. Willow, that's a bad one to compare it to because Will Disney just yeeted that one. Like literally, they canceled it and then they got rid of it off the platform. They're like, "Oh, there's financial stresses. There's financial reasons." In other words, it was so bad, you get mocked so heavily for. You're like, "Yeah, let's flush this down the drain right off as tax reasons, and let's never talk about that again." You can probably go find it for free on some pirate websites out there if you want to go see the show. Literally, at the end of the show, you have worm reproductive fluids being sprayed onto the characters. Like, what in the world are you doing, Disney? And that was supposed to be a children's show. Yeah, real children friendly, my friend. So, The Willow, I'm not really all that sorry to see it go. The Acolyte, you had the two space witches making lesbian thread force for children. It was just weird and wrong, and I'm not sorry to see that show go. Also, the acting was pretty bad in that show, so if that's a correlation, then this show needed to die in the first season. At least what they did with the Willow and the Acolyte, Disney yeeted that in the first season. The fact that this show got 2 seasons and it still had this ideology in it is actually pretty impressive. So Disney was still trying to give the DEI a chance, but with those numbers, nah, you're just getting cut loose. And yeah, it goes ahead here and just talks about how they've been cutting stuff loose from Disney for the DEI website since around the time Trump got reelected. So the correlation that, is politics the reason why Disney's getting rid of DEI? Possibly. But I think it's mostly coming down to numbers that Disney's finally starting to listen like, oh, parents don't want this in their children programming. They're going to cut Disney off if we continue down this route. Remember Buzz Lightyear, how they had the two lesbians in that? I don't think that is why Buzz Lightyear failed, but definitely played a factor into it. You can't say that it didn't. I think the main issue with that Buzz Lightyear film is that it wasn't quite what they were expecting for a Ranger film, Space Ranger going out and fighting bad guys. Wasn't really what people were expecting to come out of Buzz Lightyear. I think that's really the reason why that film failed. But you can't say that DEI in that film didn't help. And so that's just another example of the long course of history of Disney with the DEI that's just completely destroyed the entertainment so far. Now, I do want to mention a little bit on why possibly this failed when we go over to Pink News, the bastion of reporting, I tell you. They have a bit at the article right down at the bottom that I thought was kind of interesting to read to you real quick. There are no coming out moments, no misunderstandings or assumptions, no discussions about it at all. So you're like, oh, well, if it's not anything like that, then like if you just have gay characters and they don't really impact the story at all and you don't make it a big deal, okay, we're all fine. And then unfortunately, they have right after that one episode written by lesbian writer Miko Termic sees Cece and Alex kissing in one of, if not the only kisses in the show. The outlet added, "It's very refreshing to take on a queer relationship in a children's TV show." And that right there, you're just like, okay, you had me there like at this part here, like It's not that big a deal. You're not really making a mention of it. Like, people just like maybe are having a rainbow flag, but they're not really being into the gay stuff. Okay. But then you go ahead and then you have kids who kissing each other who are gay, and then you just putting that propaganda in front of children, and then you're like, oh, okay, no, you lost me. I'm not a fan of this anymore. At least that's my perspective coming from it. As I said, I didn't watch the show. I'm just glad to see that another piece of DEI is hitting the road. But you guys let me know. What do you think? Do you think I'm being a bit too harsh on Disney and DEI? Do you think that DEI actually has a place? I personally do not. But I want to hear what your thoughts are. Let me know down in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear from you. Y'all take care now. Bye.